Hello everyone, and welcome to the Joint Snapping System version 1.40.0. This for Blender versions 3.3 to 5.2. And you'll notice here on the right that we now support packs. And packs are a new feature that lets you distribute content with an image to wherever you want to distribute it, like say superhivemarket.com. And they contain all the list items of the objects that you created. For example, if you want to have a spaceship pack, or a sci-fi pack, or a castle pack, or a character pack, or a vehicle pack, you can distribute these packs on superhivemarket.com. And you can create a new pack. You can export a pack or import a pack here. Let's start by creating a new pack. Let's just call it new pack. You can see it gets a new pack image. And you can upload your own image that exports with the pack. If I open the pack, you can see that every pack now has a prefab list and an assemblies list. The prefabs list is kind of a temporary holding area to store temporary objects that you want to delete later. And the assemblies list is kind of a area for you to save assembled objects. So if you create a car or a spaceship or an entire castle, you would save it to the assemblies list. And what's nice about packs is that it's context sensitive. So if you create a new list here, I'll just call it new list, well, in this case, new list 2. And if you create a new prefab, it's going to show you all the lists in that drop-down box when you save to a list. So you can save to the prefabs list, or you can save to the new list I just created. I'll save it to the new list. And there's my prefab object. And you can export this. When you export the project, the person who imports the projects gets all of the objects from that list, including the image. Now, the next big feature I want to talk about is tags, assemblies, and the workflow improvement to connect tags together. Because there are a lot of improvements made in this update that help the workflow for connecting tags together. In the previous update, I demonstrated how you can populate an object with tags and snapping points, right? So this was the whole object of a spaceship. So you just press Shift-J, you do populate tag joints, and you can set it to the original source, and we'll set it to a cascade depth of 3 and hit populate. And as you can see, it populated the object automatically with the snapping points and from that list, because we already set up the snapping points. And that's the same for torches. If you remember, we set up several torch objects. So if we select these objects, you can select multiple at a time, click populate, do the same source, and it populates those items with the snapping objects, and they snap to the snapping points, which is really cool. So that was populate tag joints, and there's been a lot of improvements to populate tag joints, and there's been a lot of improvements made to randomize selected. So randomize selected still works. It randomizes the selected objects like so. You change the seed, and it randomizes all those objects. So that was the last update. In this update, we've included a major feature, which is assemblies. And assemblies are basically, if I click on the assemblies tile here and click on a tile, it will load an assembly. So it's like it populated the entire collection of snapping objects. I made this simple spaceship here called Fighter A, and there's Fighter B, and there's Fighter C. So how is this useful? Why can't you just save a blend file and save your objects that way? Well, you can, but there's a lot of features that were implemented for Populate and Randomize. So, for example, you can populate an assembly, and you can populate an assembly from an assemblies list. So I'll just go Shift J and do populate tag joints, and I'll set it to the original source, which is the assemblies list. And I'll set it to random, and I'll set it to a cascade depth of 3. I'll hit populate, and as you can see, it populated the assembly. So how is this useful? Well, you can change the seed, and it will randomize between the 3 assemblies. It'll randomize the parts. So you can get, you know, you can get a spaceship that is half and half. So each of these are snapping objects. Notice that uh, it knows the hierarchy of the snapping objects. So, for example, this is one blaster here. This is one gun on one wing, and this is a variant that has 2 guns, and it knows that hierarchy. It knows to connect this wing first, and then connect these guns second because they're part of that cascading system. So there's this hugely powerful. Um, say you create an assembly of several spaceships, you can randomize the parts in between all those spaceships, which is really cool. So you can really create a spaceship generator, um, or a castle generator, or a character generator, or a car generator, whatever, through assemblies, through packs, because each pack has its own assembly. And so it's really an extension on the populate feature. And randomize selected works as you would expect. Uh, you select those individual parts, and you can click randomize selected. For example, I'll show that now. If I select these parts, choose randomize, I go Shift J and then randomize selected. And I'll just keep it at original source. I can make it symmetrical if I want. I can do rebuild children. I can set the cascade depth at 3. And I'll do randomize. And you can see it randomize those parts. So this is a really cool system. Now, the next big feature I want to talk about is how to set up these assemblies. Because creating tags and naming the tags correctly, making sure they line up correctly, everything like that, that's kind of a burden for the artist. So we've created a system that makes this really easy, and that is called process assembly. Process assembly automatically detects faces that are close to each other. So let me show you an example of that. So I'll use the 2 cube example here to demonstrate that. I'll select the 2 cubes, press Shift J, and I'll press Process Assembly. Now what you'll see on the screen is that it automatically created the snapping points, and it automatically created the tags. Well, actually, not the tags, but it created the connection between the 2 snapping points already, visualized by this blue and orange circle. And you can flip the sides. The S, the blue S stands for socket, and the orange A stands for attachment. And that's kind of important The socket is generally the host of an object, and the attachment is generally the guest of an object. So the wing of a spaceship would be the socket, and then the gun of a spaceship would be the attachment. And you can flip those around by pressing F, and you can name this tag. So you can call this two cubes connection, or whatever, whatever tag you want to use. And you can see it adds the name there, two cubes connection. So naming is really important for the system to detect accurately which parts connect together. If you tag a connection, it guarantees that those connections will be connected together when the process happens. So so you can delete these by pressing X, or you can press Enter or space to accept, and escape to cancel. I'm going to press space. Now that process has been processed. So these are now snapping objects with snapping points that line up exactly as you saved it. So this is perfect for assemblies because you can create an entire spaceship and make sure all those parts and faces line up correctly, and then you can process the entire spaceship. So let me show you an example of that. I'll delete these two cubes. I'll open up the fighter blend file. So this is the fighter that I used. Uh, it's very simple, so don't be discouraged by how simple it is. You can have this looking like a really nice spaceship. Um, you can edit this however you want. It doesn't matter what the geometry looks like. But to process this, you can tell that these are beveled. Notice this wing is beveled. It has insets, and the major thing here is that these faces are flush. Right? That's the major thing. You want the faces to be flush when you're processing assembly. So I'll select these objects. They're already flush. I made sure of that. And you want to select all the objects with the root object being selected last or highlighted. You can see it has this teal outline, uh, and that means that it's the selected object. So you want the root of the object, in this case the spaceship hull, to be selected last. So I'll press Shift J, and I'll do process assembly. And you can see that it adds those connection points. So it's really cool. It adds snapping points and tags between those snapping points at where the faces intersect, or not intersect, but overlap. And you can flip these around if you want. You can select them individually. You can select multiple at a time by holding Shift, and it works really well. Ideally, you want the blue side to be facing inward towards the root. That's just the right naming convention where the socket holds the attachment. In this case, the wing is the attachment, and the gun is the attachment too, but the wing also has a socket. So you can name these, right? So the a good workflow is to name these. This is the left wing, and this is the right wing. You can press T to name these these sockets and attachments. So you don't actually have to name them, but it does help. Now I'll just press spacebar to confirm that process. And so now these are all snapping objects. Press J, it repositions it, it snaps. Each of these pieces are snapping objects, and they snap exactly like you would expect. They have all the features of the snapping system worked into it. So you can use precision snapping. You can use force snap mode. You can use incremental snap mode, whatever features or tools that you want to use at your disposal. But basically, this is an assembly now. So you want to save this assembly, right? So I'll go over to packs and I'll go over to the new pack and I'll save it to this new assembly. So I press Shift J and all I have to do is press Save Assembly. I'll call this new fighter assembly. And it'll ask you what pack you want to save it to. It doesn't ask you what specific assembly you want to save it to. It asks you what pack because each pack has its dedicated assembly folder. So I'll save it to the new pack. And there you go. Just like prefabs, it gets a thumbnail. And at this point, you can delete the object because it's now saved. So if you want to center the pivot point here, and then you can click the icon, and there's your saved assembly. Exactly as you saved it. It still has the snapping objects, each individual snapping point, and it's a really nice workflow. You don't have to make objects and tag them specifically anymore. I know that update only came out a few days ago, maybe only one day ago, but the system is now working for assemblies. So if you make multiple spaceships, you can randomize the parts between them. That's really powerful. And this new feature works with all our existing tools. If you want to individually create these, um, actually, I don't think you can edit prefab. Let's see if it works. Yeah, no. You have to actually have it be a joint snapping object before you can edit the prefab. But you can do from active mesh, and you can edit the snapping points that way. So you can add snapping points here. You can change the geometry. You can add legacy snapping points. In the last use operation box, I told it to copy the existing snapping points and also add a grid. So you can see now there's snapping points on all sides of the grid. And you can rotate that however you want. I'll just hit escape. There's been some other workflow improvements. For example, you can also press the spacebar now to accept a prefab. So spacebar, escape, and enter are now universal between the add-on. And I felt that was a really easy workflow. So if you go into edit snapping points mode, you can press escape and that backs out of edit snapping points mode. If you press escape again, it backs out of the edit prefab or create prefab workflow. So the usability there has been vastly improved. There is a limitation for the assemblies. You cannot randomize the root object, and in this case, the root object is the hole here. So that is a limitation, unfortunately. And there was just no way to work around it safely. So keep that in mind. If you're making a car or something like that, the root has to stay the same. Has to stay the same. But you can still randomize the parts. So that's important to make clear. So it took a lot of work to get Populate to work with both assemblies and prefabs. So earlier I showed you how we populated the torches and we populated that little spaceship that we made. So Populate is a very powerful feature now. And in that feature, we have in this dialog box, we have features here that are very specific, such as you can choose the source, you can choose a specific list, but a specific list will only work for list objects. or you could choose a specific assembly. In this case, you know, let's go back. I'll show you, for example. If I go back to the starter pack and I load up one of the 3 fighters, and I'll delete their parts, and I'll do populate. Now you can choose specific assembly, and you can choose a specific fighter jet or a specific fighter spaceship um, to generate from. So I can have the hull of fighter A and generate the whole of, or the spaceship parts of fighter C. So I'll go to specific assembly, I'll change it to fighter 3 or fighter C, and I'll change the cascade depth to 3, and I'll hit populate. Now you can see it has the hull of fighter A, but it has the wings and the guns of fighter C. So that's really powerful there. Some of the other features, um, obviously deterministic and random. Random is a big feature I already showed you, but if you change it to selected assemblies, you can choose exactly what objects from the assemblies list that you want to randomly generate from. So that's a really nice feature. For example, you can have all your assemblies in the assemblies list. You can have several cars, and you can pick the specific cars you want to randomly generate from. So, uh, and you can also choose symmetrical, right? So when you choose symmetrical, it'll give you the option of what symmetry axis you want to use, and what source side you want to use, positive or negative. So let's just choose random. Let's choose all 3 fighters, and let's do symmetrical on the x-axis, and we'll have it be source side negative, it doesn't really matter, with a cascade depth of 3, and hit populate. So you can notice it's symmetrical, and if I change the seed down here at the last use operation box, it'll still be random, but it'll be symmetrical. So if I choose this option, for example, with inset on the side of the wing, you can see that on the other side it has the inset. So this is hugely powerful for spaceships if you want your spaceships to be random, but also be symmetrical. You don't have to, excuse me, you don't have to merge the object together and symmetrize it or anything like that. It'll just use the parts that you've made for symmetry. It just it automatically looks at the other side, and it knows that that branch is a symmetrical branch. So I encourage you to play around with this. It's working really well for these fighter spaceships. Um, we might run into some edge cases, but it's a very fast workflow. So I think that's all the features I wanted to talk about. I hope you find this compelling. I hope you find this interesting. Again, the big features are packs, assemblies, and the automated workflow for tags. So, thank you for watching. Please hit like, comment, and subscribe. And thanks for watching.